guys remember George Stephanopoulos rape-shaming Congresswoman Nancy Mace and spreading lies against President-elect Trump? Here's the controversial interview. Watch.
Congressman, thanks for joining us this morning. You've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Well, I will tell you, I was raped at the age of 16. And any rape victim will tell you, I've lived for 30 years with an incredible amount of shame over being raped. I didn't come forward because of that judgment and shame that I felt. And it's a shame that you will never feel, George. And I'm not going to sit here on your show and be asked a question meant to shame me about another potential rape victim. I'm not gonna do that.
It's actually not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald Trump.
No, you are shaming me.
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president.
Right.
Donald Trump has been found liable for rape by a jury. Donald Trump has been found liable for defaming the victim of that rape by a jury. It's been affirmed by a judge.
It was not a criminal court case, number one. Number two, I live with shame. And you're asking me a question about my political choices, trying to shame me as a rape victim, and I find it disgusting. And quite frankly, E. Jean Carroll's comments when she did get the judgment, joking about what she was going to buy, it makes it harder for women to come forward when they make a mockery out of rape. I just answered your question.
What is the answer?
He was not found guilty in a criminal court of law. It was sexual abuse. It wasn't actually rape, by the way. And E. Jean Carroll joked about all the money she's going to get and made a mockery out of this case. And I think that's offensive. There's a reason why women don't come forward. And when you have someone who says that they're raped and they make a mockery out of this civil court judgment, it's offensive to other women. It makes it harder for other women to come forward when another woman has made a mockery of it.
What did I say, guys? Everything is coming up Trump. Coming from the controversial Nancy Mace interview, ABC News just agreed to pay $15 million in a settlement reached with President-elect Donald Trump in his defamation case against the network and anchor George Stephanopoulos. But not only that, guys, the settlement also revealed that the network will also pay $1 million in Trump's attorney fees and will issue an apology. Here's the clip.
ABC News and George Stephanopoulos have reached a settlement with President-elect Trump in his defamation lawsuit. The network agrees to pay $15 million as a charitable contribution to Trump's presidential library. ABC and Stephanopoulos will also issue statements of regret as an editor's note to the March 2024 article and television segment that prompted Trump to file the lawsuit earlier this year. Trump sued Stephanopoulos after he asserted in an interview that Trump was found, quote, liable for rape in a civil case, despite the fact that a jury actually determined Trump was liable for, quote, sexual abuse, which has a distinct definition under New York law.
Now Trump needs to sue Joy Reid and the ladies of The View next. You know, I think he should probably just sue everybody who called him Hitler on air. Brian Stetler, CNN chief media analyst, commented on the news. Now watch and see just how hard he's trying to spin this in favor or in their favor and try to make Trump look bad. Check this out.
One word comes to mind, the word emboldened. Trump and his team is going to be emboldened by this settlement by ABC, because rather than fight this out any further, rather than trying to go to trial, ABC is choosing to settle. What does that mean? Maybe that means ABC had embarrassing emails or text messages or other material that was going to make the network look bad. Remember, that's one of the reasons why Fox News settled against Dominion last year. Sometimes networks settle because they don't want to drag it out any further and get embarrassed in the court of public opinion. But regardless of ABC's rationale, and they won't say why exactly they decided to reach this settlement, it will embolden Trump and his allies who, as you've said, have shown they want to use the courts in order to achieve certain outcomes they want. In this case, they believe justice is being done by holding ABC accountable. Others would say this is a form of lawfare where you're using the courts to tie up news outlets and embarrass them and cost them, in this case, millions of dollars. I'm really struck, Jessica, by the dollar figure, by the way, $16 million. That's a lot of money for any news outlet to be paying out And that's going to have, I think, far-reaching ramifications.
Well, darn right, President-elect Trump should be emboldened. I think they're forgetting that he has the backing of 77 million Americans from the historic election that won him not only all of the swing states, but also the popular vote. Now, this is the first in a long, long time for the Republican Party. And the nerve of these mainstream media news networks to kind of bring up the idea of lawfare. Are you freaking kidding me? Trump's been the clear victim of Democratic lawfare since 2022. But do they talk about that? No, sirree, Bob. But you know what? These liberal media news outlets, they need to be apologizing to Americans also. They have divided and destroyed this country with their lies. You guys know what I mean? Case in point, the lies George Stephanopoulos and ABC said about President-elect Trump that they're finally paying for now. Trump filed a defamation lawsuit against Stephanopoulos after he asserted that Trump was found liable for rape in a civil case during that very heated interview with Representative Nancy Mace. That backfired quickly. You saw the clip earlier. Stephanopoulos, he just kept repeating how judges and two separate juries have found him liable for this and defaming the victim of that particular situation. They actually counted it. And the guy repeated that claim 10 times during his spat with Nancy Mace, despite the fact that a jury actually determined Trump was liable for sexual abuse, which has a very distinct definition under New York law. And man, you should have heard old Georgie at the beginning of this, acting all defiant in the face of Trump's lawsuit. At one point, he even told CBS late night host Stephen Colbert that he would not be cowed out of doing my job because of a threat. He said that Trump sued him because he used the word rape, even though a judge said that's in fact what did happen. Well, look at what happened now. ABC News and George Stephanopoulos himself reached a settlement with Donald Trump in his defamation suit, which will in fact result in the news network paying the president-elect $15 million. Now, more precisely, ABC News will pay $15 million as a charitable contribution to a presidential foundation and museum to be established by or for plaintiff as presidents of the United States of America have established in the past. And on top of that, the network will pay $1 million in Trump's attorney fees. Oh, and this last part is where it really gets juicy here. Stephanopoulos and ABC News also had to issue statements of regret as an editor's note at the bottom of a March 10th, 2024 online article. So the note says ABC News and George Stephanopoulos regret statements regarding President Donald J. Trump made during an interview by George Stephanopoulos with Representative Nancy Mace on ABC's This Week on March 10th, 2024. And the cherry on top, ABC News ate crow and they had a smile about it. They said the network was pleased to have concluded the case. The $16 million settlement from ABC and George Stephanopoulos is just the latest of a string of legal victories for our President-elect Trump and his legal team. Just recently as well, federal judge Tanya Chutkan granted special counsel Jack Smith's recent request to dismiss his very own case against Trump related to the 2020 presidential election. Jack Smith also tossed his appeal in the classified records case after a federal judge dismissed the charges altogether in July, ruling that he was unlawfully appointed as special counsel. I mean, what a slap in the face for Jack Smith, right? Having to toss your own case and then file for its dismissal? What a lame dude, right? That's gotta hurt. Meanwhile, our president-elect is finally being vindicated in this ridiculous but wide-spreading lawfare campaign against him. We just have a last couple holdouts in persons of Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg, even Letitia James. But with the way that things are going, I highly doubt that these Trump haters are going to last that long. I mean, these lies that they've told about our president-elect, honestly, I think $15 million isn't enough. I honestly thought it was kind of low. In fact, continuously lying about our president-elect should probably incur its own penalties. That'll teach these liberal media news companies to fall in line. But what do you guys think? Drop a quick yes in the comments down below. Also hit the like button to show your support. And I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and tapping that notification bell if you guys have not already. That way you guys can stay on top of the story and all other news is coming from our soon to be great again country. You know what I mean? Now, don't go anywhere yet, guys. We are just halfway through this one and we're continuing with the discussion right now. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the liberal media coverage against President-elect Trump because we got some actual numbers proving how biased these news networks have been. As a new study put it, coverage on ABC, CBS, and NBC News of the presidential race between former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris has been the most lopsided in history. Now, according to the Media Research Center, Kamala Harris has received 78% positive coverage on broadcast evening news since July versus Trump, who has been the subject of 85% negative coverage on the same news networks. Bias much? Now, this was even greater than in 2016 when both Trump and then challenger Hillary Clinton received mostly negative news coverage, 91% negative for Trump, 79% negative for Clinton. Also, greater than in 2020 when Joe Biden was treated to 66% positive coverage versus 92% negative for Trump. So yeah, guys, you know they were hard for this one. In fact, the MRC reported that ABC, CBS, and NBC have spent more than 200 minutes of airtime, most of it negative, meanwhile glossing over on, in many cases, outright ignoring controversies related to Harris, such as plagiarism accusations and allegations surrounding her husband, Doug Emhoff. Things took a turn for the worse after the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in September. In fact, the report found that the date that Harris entered the race on July 21st through September 10th, she received 353 minutes of network evening news coverage, virtually identical to the 355 minutes that was given to Trump during the same period. And since then, however, TV has focused nearly twice as much attention on Trump as Harris, 398 minutes for the former president, compared to just 230 minutes for the vice president. Sounds good on paper, right? But according to the MRC, the additional airtime for Trump was hardly meant as a gift. Instead, it reflected the network's intensive focus on Trump controversies, providing opportunities for negative news coverage. Roughly 31% of the 753 minutes of evening news spent on Trump since July 21st spotlighted his personal controversies. So basically, they're comparing it to barely 5% of Kamala Harris's airtime of 28 minutes out of a total of 583 minutes of coverage that was spent on similar topics. Now, we all heard it and we all saw it. The news networks repeatedly cited January 6th and Trump's claim that the 2020 election was rigged while labeling him as a danger to democracy. But did we hear anything of that level about Kamala Harris? No, of course not. Instead, over 14 weeks, evening news viewers heard a scant 5 minutes, 22 seconds of GOP criticisms that she's just too liberal, barely 1/6 the airtime that was spent on the claim Trump is a fascist. Plus, they said that none of this news coverage included any criticisms of Kamala Harris from either network reporters or nonpartisan sources. So yeah, their official conclusion, the media coverage over the 3 months is more lopsided than that of any presidential election in the modern media age. Now, take note, guys, this report came out before President-elect Trump won by a landslide. But you know what they said? That if Trump regains the White House, the media's campaign against him, it will have accomplished nothing except further erosion of their own reputations. Fast forward to now, they're indeed seeing how this large-scale media smear campaign against President-elect Trump no longer has any effect on the American people. We're smarter than that. Thanks to additional platforms like YouTube, like this one, like X, like TikTok, we're able to actually share real news and get real truth out and not be subject to only getting our news from mainstream media. This is why their ratings are sucking. We, the people, have grown immune to the scare tactics and the fear mongering by the liberal media. And the overwhelming majority of American voters, 77 million strong, mind you, rose up on November 5th and chose to make America great again. Am I right, guys? The truth shall set us free and all that. See, people finally became free once they understood the truth of what our mainstream media is, rather than the front that it hides behind. Now, as you guys saw from the likes of George Stephanopoulos and networks like ABC and CBS and NBC, they have in fact prioritized bias over truth as outlets propagandize for one particular political party, regardless of what the real deal is. Ever since 1973, Gallup poll has polled Americans annually to measure their trust in the media. Well, guess what? Last year, only 32% actually said that they trusted mass media as being a great deal or a fair amount to report the news in a full, fair, and accurate way. Yeah, so basically only 32% of America actually trust mainstream media news. Why am I not surprised? This is a return to 2016's low. And despite our mainstream media's obvious preference for the Democratic Party, only 58% of Democrats trust the industry. So that's crazy. They pander to the Democratic Party and only 58% of Democrats still trust them. Isn't this crazy? Now, me personally, I know a lot of people who woke up to our current media's misleading and frankly cruel nature based on how lopsided and unfair they've treated President-elect Trump. A lot of them compare it with their treatment of Barack Obama and far worse than their coverage of previous Republican presidents. And sure, they blame Trump Trump's attacks on the press, but the trend toward disillusionment has been building for decades. Trump didn't command me to become skeptical of the mainstream media. Instead, they revealed themselves to be untrustworthy through their violent rhetoric against him as a presidential candidate and now as the president-elect. Trump derangement syndrome is what they call it, and based on what we talked about today, it looks like mainstream media is definitely suffering from TDS. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Should President-elect Trump clean house in the media as well? Should they suspend the licenses of these biased news networks? Just drop a quick yes or no in the comments down below, guys. Let's make a conversation out of it. I mean, we can totally circle back on this topic in a future video if you guys want to. I would definitely be up for some more discussion about how Trump's enemies are finally getting what's coming to them. You know what I mean? So just make sure you stay subscribed to the channel, have your notification bell turned on so you don't miss out on any of our future updates. Oh, and speaking of that, don't forget to check out our other videos on the channel. I just uploaded one recently of a FBI director, Christopher Wray, running away before Trump and Kash Patel get a chance to go after him for what he did to the agency. Oh yeah, definitely check that one out after this one. Thanks so much for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.